These are your lines. It's said that laughter is the highest gift of the gods. Well, sometime near the start of the 20th century, it came time for you to be born, Stan and Oliver, so laughter rolled down from the blue vault of the skies and broke into two parts. You, Stan Laurel, are the first half. You're born at Ulverston in Lancashire, England, right, Stan? And your stage name is now Stan Laurel. What was your real name, Stan? You want to tell her? You want to tell her?
My real name?
Your real name?
Jefferson.
Jeff, that's nice.
Stanley Jefferson.
Stanley? Was there a name before that?
Arthur.
Arthur Stanley. When English schoolmasters called the roll and came to the name of Arthur Stanley Jefferson, they seldom got an answer. Why was that, Stan? Were you there all the time? Sometimes. You used to sort of like to skip school once in a while, didn't you?
Once in a while.
Once in a while. And as you... What are you laughing at, Mr. Hardy, over here? Yeah, oh, all right. As you grow up, Father tries hard to get you to learn the business end of the shortly. Your father encourages you, gets you an engagement with Levy and Cardwell's juvenile pantomimes. You're just 17. 1910... You tour America and here decide to remain to play in your own acts in American vaudeville. In a moment, we'll that are still the delight of all of us now on television. The 1930s, the 1940s, you keep turning out your clean, wholesome comedies. And during this time, neither of you realizes what an impact you're having on millions of people overseas until you undertake a tour of England and Europe in 1947.
Stan and Oliver were completely unprepared for the explosion of joy and welcome that greeted them everywhere overseas.
Out from Cuckoo Land came Stan Laurel, and tagging along behind, 21 stones worth of Oliver Hardy.
When were you last over here? 1932, wasn't it?
That's right.
1932. Now you're over here again. What are you going to do?
Well, we're going to do some personal appearances and also a picture.
What's the picture going to be called?
What's the name of the picture?
Robin Hood, I think.
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. That should be good fun.
We hope so.
Are you visiting any relatives over here? Stan, I believe you come from Ulverston.
That's right. I'm going to visit my dad and my sister and a few cousins.
There are quite a lot of them over here.
There are quite a few.
What about you, Oliver?
Well, I've got a lot of cousins over here, too, I hope.
Anything especially you want to do over here, Oliver?
Nothing but try and make the people happy, and will you keep quiet a minute? And have a good time, and have everyone else have a good time. I'm talking to the gentleman. Will you keep quiet just a moment? And then I think that after a couple of weeks we might... What is it?
You're standing on my foot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. The name, please. Oliver Norval Hardy. Now, what's your name?
Sir, Stanley Laurel.
Laurel and Hardy are the world's most famous comedy double act. They made over 100 films together between 1927 and 1953. And half a century later, they're still as popular as ever.
As soon as you saw the first Laurel and Hardy film, it just stuck with you. You knew about Laurel and Hardy after that.
It's called comedy. I think they're just definitive.
Laurel and Hardy was kind of like a family favourite in our house. They were hilarious.
But the real Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy were complex people whose private lives were very much at odds with their on-screen personas.
One of the great myths about Laurel and Hardy is that they were the same people on screen and off. The point about Laurel and Hardy, as about many comedians, was that they made their various fears and anxieties and flaws into art.
Well, here's another nice mess you've gotten me into.
Not in Hollywood, but in northern England, where Stan Laurel, or Stan Jefferson as he was christened, was born in the market town of Ulverston in 1890, the eldest son of a family with a strong theatrical tradition.
Stan's father, A.J. Jefferson, was a playwright, he was a comedian. In fact, Stan's birth certificate has as the profession of father comedian. And so Stan was simply brought up in the business. He was backstage a lot, and he, of course, adored the comics. They were his idols, and he would watch them from backstage and determined very early that that's exactly what he was going to do.
Though his father wanted him to be a theatre manager, Stan was already headstrong enough to want to follow him onto the stage, despite the insecurities of a life in vaudeville.
It was hard work, travelling all over the country all the time. And of course then you've got to fix up trying to get digs somewhere. I mean, I'd many times got to the theatre and I hadn't got any digs. I got nowhere to sleep that night.
But Stan was determined enough to get an audition at his father's theatre in Glasgow, without his father's knowledge.
So up went the curtain, and Stan got out there, a big smile, and there in the front row was his father.
Surprisingly, Stan's father was happy to support him, using his theatrical connections to get him a job with Fred Karno's travelling variety show.
You would see a conjurer, acrobats, dancers, singers, all different people, and it was such a variety, and that was why it was called variety theatres.
And Karno's leading man was a certain Charlie Chaplin.
Stan became Charlie Chaplin's understudy, as well as his roommate on tour. Well, Stan could do virtually anything that Chaplin could do.
When I was very young, and I can't remember why, I met an old man in Leeds, my hometown. He'd worked at the old Hippodrome Theatre, I think, in Leeds, that no longer existed. And the Fred Karno company came. And he remembered the principal comedian very well. He said he was brilliant and nobody liked him. Everybody liked his understudy who could do everything he did. The star was Charlie Chaplin and the understudy was Stan Laurel.
While Stan dreamed of following his father as a comedian, on the other side of the Atlantic, young Norvell Hardy's life was forged by his father's premature death when he was just a baby.
I think young Hardy may well have been to an extent doted on by his mother, having lost his father as a baby. One of Hardy's half-sisters felt that the boy overate to compensate for the loss of his father at such an early age.
Oliver grows up as the fat boy of a small southern town where it's a very bad idea to be different, and where the solution is, like many kids who are perceived to be different, to try and be popular by any means necessary.
I'm sure that deep inside him there's that pain of someone who was bullied and who couldn't do cross-country runs like the rest of the people in his class and didn't get the girls when he was 15, and all those things that people are confronted with when they have a frame that isn't the supposedly perfect frame.
He was not particularly good as a scholar. At one point he was actually put into a military academy from which he ran away, but only be pacified after a liberal supply of biscuits from his mother. But overall he loved music, and I believe he was temporarily at least a student at the Atlanta Conservatory of Music in order to channel this interest.
But it was film that really captured the young Oliver's imagination. In 1910, he got a job at the local cinema as an assistant, where he frequently sang to entertain the audiences between films.
And he took a look at the various things that were happening on screen, and as he put it later on, felt that he could be as good or as bad as those fellows.
Between shows, Ollie began hanging around the Lubin Film Studios in nearby Jacksonville. In 1914, he got his break as an extra in the comedy They Looked Alike.
I think size is always really double-edged.